I did 21 years out of 15 alive, and my focus here today is I want to emphasize how important it is for you loved ones. What an important role you play in the parole process for your loved one. I went to parole lots of times, got shot down, not because I didn't have the help, but because I didn't get it. I didn't get it still. I was in denial of my culpability. Um, I just haven't came to terms with I haven't came to terms with everything I had to accept. Now, as far as insight, um, the way my life was from a little kid, I practically with my decisions, I was doomed to fail. I grew up with my parents when they were divorced at the age of 3. So I was seeing my father every other week. My mother, she had to work a lot, so I grew up with my grandmother. She could only do so much. She couldn't be there all the time. She was already older, so pretty much I grew up doing everything I wanted. All my friends were right outside, so once I was out that door, I was pretty much on my own. Um, at the age of 12, I went to the juvenile hall. After that, I was never really out. I grew up with my sisters, with my little sisters, but because of my lifestyle, because of my going to juvenile hall all the time, I lost contact with them from a very young age. I saw them occasionally, but that's it. I never really got to know them the way I wish we would have. I got introduced to heroin at the age of 16. I started running around with the gang out there, and eventually I ended up taking a precious human life. That's when I got my life sentence, and again, in prison, I didn't change because of that, because I did not stop to, I had no empathy, I had no regard for anybody's feelings, anything. Like the gentleman was saying earlier, David, you become numb to crime. You don't see anything wrong with it anymore. It just becomes your way of life. So that's what happened. In prison, you multiply that by 100 because that's the norm in there. And because of that, and because of the politics of the Board of Prison terms, we all know because whoever has their loved one in there since 80s, 90s, we knew that when you went to prison, 15 alive, 7 alive, it pretty much meant life without parole. Nobody going home for a long time, up until now. But because of that, I didn't change my lifestyle. The way I saw it was, you know what, I'm done. There's no need for me to even try. That's it. I lost touch with a lot of my family members. I continued to use heroin in there. I continued to run with gangs. I was sitting there one time in the hospital. I had just gotten shot in prison while stabbing somebody. And there was one of my neighbors there. He had also gotten shot around the same time. So he was also laying there. And I remember listening to the sentence saying, we're going to die in here, aren't we? He just shook his head. He said, yeah, we pretty much are. And it was really hard. It was really hard to accept. I mean, we had no other choice. So I continued to live the way, the way I was going. For a long time, I went like that. And one thing I didn't, I used to hear the word remorse. I'm sure we all hear it because of the Board of Prison terms. But at that time, it was just legal jargon, just terminology that the board uses a lot. That's all it was to me. Remorse, maybe I've heard it in shows like Law and Order, and things like that, but it had no meaning to me. And as time went on, I started to feel many things that I had no understanding of. For example, while I was drinking one time in prison, I was drinking, and I also was shooting heroin. I was sitting there in my cell. And while I was laying there, nodding out, I never met my victim's mother, but I could have sworn that I saw her and heard her saying, what are you doing? You took my loved one from me? here you are doing the same thing that you did when you took my love away from me. It was a terrible feeling. I know I was very drunk, I was very high, but I could vividly see her there, and I've never forgotten that. And it didn't change me. You know, it's sad to say, it didn't change me. I still kept doing the same thing, but that began to, it laid that little seed right there that eventually would become remorse. So the years went on, and I kept remembering that. I kept remembering those words. Every time I would get high, I would remember those words. I no longer enjoyed the high. I no longer enjoyed whenever I would take a drink of that wine we would make in there. It wasn't enjoyable anymore. I couldn't understand why. Now, when I was participating in gang activity in there, whenever I would go to the hole, I remember there were times when I would go into the hole, and I felt proud of what I did. Whenever I would go in there, and they would introduce me to the higher ups and the gang members, and I would shake their hand, I felt like I was shaking the hand of the President of the United States. And now, when I was going in there, I just felt ashamed. Every time they would pat me on the back saying, "Good, homie, you did good," I would go into my cell, sit there, good, what am I doing? And it was weird feeling like that, because I used to feel proud of it. I felt like I was a man, and I no longer felt like that. I didn't understand what it was. But now, when I think back, it was just like a shallow pool, you know, because I still wasn't deep into remorse yet. It was just like a shallow pool of remorse. Something that I couldn't understand, but it was forming. And what really brought me to remorse, to understand it, was my family. Talking to my family, at least the ones that were there at the time, for example, my father, because not very many of my loved ones were around at that time, and that was because of me. I pushed them away because of my behavior. And I remember one time, 8 years before I was to go to my court hearing, I stabbed somebody. I went to the hole, and I remember going in there, and I just got on my knees one night. I got on my knees and said, "Lord, I'm not asking you to get me out of prison. If I'm going to die in here, okay, I accept it. I took a human life. But Lord, just change me. I don't want to do this no more. At least change my ways. And if I'm going to die in here, please, let me go to heaven. Let me go see you in heaven when I die. Let me be a better person." Well, he did more than that. You know, he got me out of prison. He changed me. But again, the importance of family. Once I said that prayer, everything started changing. Not fast, not as fast as I wanted to, but little by little. For example, my sister, who's present here today, all of a sudden I get a letter from her after so many years. And not a one-page letter, "Hey, how you doing? Write me back if you get this." She wrote me a very long letter introducing me to my nephews. She went into detail of each and every one of them. Gabriel is a great football player. Brandon, he's the one that looks out for me, he takes care of me. "Mom, how are you? Are you sad today?" Ivan, he's a quiet one. He's the one that looks like me. She went into detail on everything, like if I were there at the house, and she was bringing me in to say, "Meet the family." Now, that was special. That was, I can't even explain the feeling, but that right there, that began to give me more understanding of what remorse is. Because now, I was being humanized. I was no longer just a monster, just a caged animal. I was being humanized little by little. I'm visiting my little brother. He wanted to emulate me in every way. If I would be coloring right there with him in the visiting room, he wanted to color the same thing. If I would get up to go get a burrito, he wanted to get up and go get the same thing. And one day we were sitting there visiting, and I was talking to my dad. And we turned around and we see my little brother. He had the colors. He was painting himself all over his arms. And my dad asked him, what are you doing? And it broke my heart. He said, I want to be like my brother. And he was coloring his little arms. And that broke me right there. I went back to my cell, and I was in tears. This little boy who looks up to me, I mean, if this is what he wants to do now, what else is he going to want to emulate? So, like I said, it didn't happen overnight, but with the support of my family, the interaction, with them showing me love, everything started changing little by little. And from then on, just like Richie said, just like bad things snowball without you realizing them, so do good things. Next thing you know, I was going to college. I was participating in every self-help group to try to better myself. And everything comes in time. I remember Richie and I, we went to go see our attorney at the same time. And I know this is encouraging for everybody to hear, because I know everybody here, you don't know when your loved one's coming home. You see them doing well, you see them trying, but you can't really tell what sharing is going to be. Well, we understand that because Richie and I, we were both there waiting to see our attorneys, and I had never known Richie. We were just talking there, and we asked each other, are we ever going to get out? Do you think we'll ever get paroled? Well, that's the last time I saw Richie. He transferred to another prison. He went to board on his own. I went to board on my own. The next time we saw each other was at the training center, all free. Amen. So to all you here, don't get discouraged, because you never know. Your loved one's freedom could be right around the corner. You have to be patient. You have to put your best foot forward. Your loved one does. And please never stop encouraging them, never stop supporting them, because that is what's going to help them. That is what's going to give them the motivation. You're the motivating factor for them. So just give them your support, and you all will be in my prayers that your loved ones, next time we are all sitting here, they can be up here. Amen.